104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, and Jay Stevens in the studio for another riveting edition of Dark Side of the Stream.
Perfect. Mike's choice.
Mike's choice today.
Mike went us down a dark path, man.
I've been looking for a way to bum Jay out from all the crap he made me watch. I was like,
I make you watch, guys.
Not crap like I didn't like
chicks
it.
Around the world.
Just like, I think I finally came.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, it's the area I don't care for.
I think I evened it up. Our homework assignment this week was called Dreamland, and it's about the Black Wall Street massacre that occurred in 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A lot of people in this area, even though that Tulsa, Oklahoma is only 2.5 hours away, have never heard about this. And we're about a little bit over 100 years. I had never heard about it. You never heard about it? How long have you been in this area?
8 years.
At least. Like that. No one talks about it. In fact, if you were probably from the Oklahoma area and you went to school there, chances are up until probably the last 5 or less years, you never heard about it either.
They hit about it in the history class.
They didn't talk about it. Even they went so far as to taking newspaper articles that were written at the time and destroying even the negatives. Those don't exist because those newspapers were definitely being sensationalist and aiding and abetting what was already a serious problem. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a tough subject, but you need to know about the Tulsa race massacre that occurred in 1921. If you didn't know, it happened in 1921 in Tulsa, and as many as 300 people lost their lives, mainly African-American business owners and people that were affluent in the area. And it's a horrific thing. As much as 100,000 people were affected directly or indirectly by what occurred in the summer of 1921 in Tulsa. Now, before we get into the details and the dirty stuff and all that stuff, have you ever been to Tulsa, Oklahoma?
I've possibly been through there. Maybe it's about
you never stayed, never partied, never saw a show, nothing.
No, I don't think I ever did.
Tulsa is a strange place. It's a cool city. I've seen a lot of great shows there. I've had some really good times there. I'm not dogging Tulsa at all, but it's just a weird place. It almost feels like Salt Lake City. You've been to Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
You know how it just feels, there's like this weird,
it's like a small town type vibe.
Almost like a small town, but it's like you're looking around, you're seeing skyscrapers.
Yeah,
and
it is
like,
a big town, but
it just kind of feels strange.
It felt kind of ghost townish to me, really.
I'm glad you say it that way, because I wanted to bring up this thing. I was out there a couple of years ago, and this was pre-pandemic. It was on a Thursday night. Went and saw a show at I think it was either Cain's or Brady Theater. It was one of the two. It was a Thursday night. The show gets out at like 10:30. We were like, we're going to the bar, We just saw a show. It's dead. Completely dead. The whole town dead. Weird. Thursday night, 10:30. I was like, what the hell is going on in this city?
Here in Springfield, you can find a lot of stuff to do on a
Thursday night. And that's what I kept saying to the bartender. I was like, dude, if we went to Springfield right now, there'd be people partying like crazy.
Is Tulsa a bigger city than Springfield?
Yeah, by far. Yeah. By far. Huge. It's a little city trying to be a big city, but at the same time, but like it's not like we're talking about, Columbia.
Maybe there's ghosts in the nights in the streets.
I don't know, dude. It's just a really strange place. And I think it has a lot to do with possibly this history here. It would have been very interesting to see.
Like a subliminal cloud.
I don't know. City, maybe? Well, you had a major uprooting of a populace at a certain point in the history.
That's where the ghosts come in, man.
And I think arguably that probably aided or abetted or changed or whatever the development of the city. And definitely affected the way it would become later on in its history because of what happened in 1921. It's a tough subject, and we're going to talk about more about it next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio today. Dark Side of the Stream discussing Dreamland documentary on HBO Max. I implore you, if you are from this area, if you watched Watchmen by chance and they touched on that arguably is why this thing kind of got some more traction. It took another fictional story about what happened. Yeah. To kind of shine a light, because you had a lot more people that were into Watchmen that watched this. They're like, God, that's fictional. I can't believe that, but no, it's not fictional. That actually happened. And that's kind of the basis of that story, which by far, God, if you're a Watchmen fan, man, I'm telling you, this is one of the greatest TV shows. It was the best TV show of the year that it aired, in my opinion, and they'll never do it again. It was a small limited series and it is phenomenal beginning to end. But let's go back to what we're talking about, Dreamland. Jay is not, if you didn't know this, from this area. And I wanted to get your perspective because race issues has been a thing since the Madonna time. Different colored skin, different color religion, different color beliefs, different people, all that stuff. We've been fighting about these things for eons, okay? You're from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And our history as the United States government in Hawaii is
there's some tension. There's
little
some tension
muddy
there.
there.
Yeah, there's some tension. It wasn't as bad as the Indians, how they did the Indians, but
I mean, but arguably, like we basically came in and said,
"Say we're gonna
take this."
It's more of an adoption type of thing.
You're gonna give it to us, or we're gonna take.
But you didn't really screw the Hawaiians. Like, tell them, "Hey, you guys got to dip out. Here's a trail. Go march." You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but I'm sure
you did the dirt. The Indians got done way dirtier.
Well,
than the
yeah,
Hawaiians
of course,
sure.
and we'll get into how that they come into play into this story too. Which that was something I learned.
I was tripping on that too,
dude.
man.
And it's straight out the gate. We'll get to that in a little bit. So, what was your experience like as far as the people that were, generational in Hawaii? Were they like,
Yeah, I mean, it's all cool at this point, but there was the generation prior to mine. There was a lot of tension between the white man and the Hawaiian guys.
You shouldn't be here. You're stomping on our
yeah,
stuff.
and it's just like anything. If you come and you're a kook, then you're not going to be accepted, But if you come and you're cool and you respect,
then you'll be cool.
Yeah.
And so in hindsight, I think that's a good point because what you see in Hawaii, especially like when we were discussing that one about the daywalkers, and I'd never heard of that lore in Hawaii,
night workers,
whatever. The
night marchers.
You got the feeling that even if you weren't native to Hawaii, but you were a Caucasian or whatever, and you lived there, you do a lot better job respecting what the native people's ideology is, their sacred ground, stuff like that. In the United States of America, at least in here, we didn't do that for the native people here at all. They burned it, build over it, move it on. And that's essentially what happened in Tulsa too.
Trail of Tears, it runs right here. I pass by it all the time.
Yeah.
This Trail of Tears.
I used to hang out in the Trail of Tears Park in Cape Girardeau, Missouri all the time. So yeah, let's get into that. How did a bunch of African Americans end up in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, there were what they called the 5 civilized tribes, and they were the tribes of the Native Americans that made a deal with the government, and they were all from the southeast area, like South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi. Picked them all up and said, "You're going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. See you later." Well, guess what? These civilized tribes, in order to make money, had slaves.
I couldn't believe it.
I was like,
the Indians had slaves. I could not believe this, man. I couldn't believe it.
It blew my mind. And so that's how the African American community got into Tulsa.
And they started mingling. There was mixed breeds of, a mating going on and stuff. It was incredible.
Well,
incredible.
So then the tribes basically make a deal, and when they're trying to get to Oklahoma as a state, they basically, the slaves were freed. It was crazy to hear that the Native Americans fought on the sides of the Confederates.
Yeah, it was
based on the fact that they could keep slaves if they want. But still, I was just like,
there was some blurred lines going on for sure.
God, what a crazy time. And you don't hear about this stuff. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old, and first time I'd ever heard that was when we were watching this documentary. It just blew my mind. How could you enslave another enslaved people while you had been enslaved? See, I just is like, golly, man. Anyway, it's wacko. So essentially, slavery comes to an end, and the part of the deal was that if you were an African American in Tulsa, you were given land. It was like 160 acres, 190 acres, something like that, which is a huge get. The fact that you went from anything at all slavery to all of a sudden you have land is huge. Now, again, Oklahoma, as far as farming is concerned, not the best. I mean, we're not talking Kansas Plains here. It's not bad either, but it's not super good. What it was good for, in fact, was Texas tea,
oil,
black gold, and it made a lot of people wealthy. And we'll get to how that came into play in this story. Dark Side of the Stream next on 104.7 The Cave. .7 The K, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 77. and we were discussing Dreamland documentary on HBO Max. It's hard to watch, in my opinion, because
they had a thriving community.
You want to believe in the American dream,
yeah, man.
right?
They were living the American dream,
and regardless how you feel about it, segregation was a thing, and that's what was happening after the Civil War came to an end. And there were rules basically saying, black communities couldn't intermingle with white communities. They had to, where you had black residential areas and white residential areas had to be separate. Do what you do in there. That's fine. Cool. No big deal. So that's what the African American community, that's what they did.
Yeah, they were living good.
They had their own bank. They had their own theaters. They had their own clothing stores, and they profited big time because the money was rolling in because of mineral rights that a lot of these African American families had because there was oil in the area. So the thing is that bugs me so much about the story is like they did literally what they were told to do, and they still got knocked for it.
They got screwed, man. Yeah.
Bottom line is this, and it's still true today. Do not let the media fuel your fire. They're still doing it. Left side, right side, they play you against you. They're playing these microcosm of people against each other when it really needs to be the haves versus the have-nots.
Right, and
I'm telling you right now, sir,
too. They're holding down the lower class.
That's what the haves are doing. That's what the haves are doing right now, just like they did in 1921. They are playing you against each other, and it's the haves versus have-nots. And we're not part of the 1%er.
No,
I don't care.
I don't care
how rich you are in this area and how well off you think you are, and you got your bills paid. You're still not part of that 1%, and you are still part of the have-nots. Do not let them play you, because they are.
They're trying to screw us. Right. Don't let them do it.
Don't let them do it.
Put on some Rage Against the Machine.
They've been doing it to us for decades, hundreds of years. It's still in play today. Please do not fall into that trap.
I endorse Mike the Intern for student council, city council.
Dude, we'll run
mayor,
for student council
run for mayor, dude. Run for mayor, bro.
Grade. You want to hear that story real quick?
No, I know you did something.
Did I tell you that story? I was huge. I was stoner, but I played football. I was one of those kids that was friends with everyone. I just loved partying. It was like, jocks partying, let's go. Stoners partying, let's go. Punks, whatever. I just like people, and that's just me. 8th grade, I was like, you know what? I'm going to run, and I'm going to win. Watch this. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to run. Well, I was running against a girl who was like, seriously, like thinking about her political career in 8th grade.
Yeah,
I was like, dude, come on. She was the one at the end of the school. It's like, I'm Mr. Smith. You didn't assign your homework. It's like, oh, thanks a lot. Well, now we got homework because you didn't want to.
Mike is the fault that poor Hillary.
Bro.
Mike, was her name Hillary?
No, I kind of remember her name. So I ended up going against her, and I won. And she was so. I don't feel bad about this in hindsight.
That was her dream, and you were just coming in to party.
She was mad. You know what she said to me? You didn't even want to do this. You just did this just to prove that you could win, and I actually wanted to do something. Then I was like, oh, I don't feel guilty at all. You're entitled, and you can walk.
Oh, Mike, stuck it to the man.
Hey, man.
So you stuck it to the man, but then you became the man.
So. I became the man. I'm trying to. Bottom line is this: make no mistake, the haves are playing the have-nots, and because there are a lot of have-nots that are both liberal and Republican or Democrat, conservative. They're playing against each other. Don't be an idiot. So that's exactly what happened here. Okay, it all started, and they still can't even really pinpoint what was happening. But bottom line is there was a shoe shiner. And they had the colored bathrooms on the top of this place, and the operator of the elevator had to let African Americans up to this top floor so they could use the restroom. And this guy worked on the bottom floor, so he was there. Now this is where it gets muddy. Either they were lovers and they had a quarrel, which I don't believe. The main consensus thought is that he was just getting onto the elevator and tripped,
right?
And to catch his fall, he put his arm out and hit her arms, and she screamed out because I think she was startled. But then even after the fact, they did an investigation with the police, and the police interviewed her, and it's documented. She just said, he just grabbed my arm, and that was what it was.
But boy, the press ran with this.
The press took this and said an African-American attacked a white girl, and you just had a powder keg of problems.
Go get them.
They bought into it, all of it. They bought into all of it. Just like what's happening today, they bought into it, and they ran with their pitchforks and guns and fire, and it just became a huge, huge problem. The thing that's crazy is they basically took this kid in and tried to hide him, to protect him, because the mob showed up at the courthouse, and most of these guys, the attorneys and police at the time, knew this shoeshine dude and knew how good of a guy was, and they always spoke to his character. Said there's no way he did anything. Yeah. But the paper ran with it, and you got played. Man. And then hundreds of people lost their lives. The city of Tulsa covered it up. They brought in the National Guard. They burned Greenwood down to the ground, to the point where now I think it's like a city block that exists.
Yeah, and they dipped everybody out. They said, "Hey, man, here's a bus ticket.
You're gone. Get out."
Crazy, man.
It's
people lost their homes, businesses, everything.
100,000 people affected by this. At least anywhere from 100 to 300 people died, and they are still finding mass graves 100 years later. That's the thing that I think people make mistakes. Times are different. You can't, unless you got to learn from history or you're doomed to repeat it. That whole thing. You can't do anything about the past. But what really pisses me off is they've been trying to get these graves found, find the names of the victims, all that stuff since the mid-90s. And it literally took another show on HBO for them to say, oh, by the way, and now they're starting to find mass graves again, 100 years later. It blows my mind. At least it seemed like in this documentary, the current mayor's trying to do something about it. But again, at the same time, you think it's a little, it kind of gave me a little kissing babies mentality to it too, which is, I don't trust the government, man.
Nah, I don't trust government at all.
Jay and I, we got more to talk about, and closing this dark side of the stream up next on 104.7 The Cave. .7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, Dark Side of the Stream, episode number 77, discussing Dreamland documentary and HBO Max. I would like to pat ourselves on the back today, Jay. We did a good job.
Oh, yeah.
I knew this was going to be tough for us because you don't.
Mike and I are both pretty open-minded when it comes to race relations.
Yeah, very.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
and I knew it was going to be
see
tough.
Race, man. Class. Even we don't even see class difference. But if somebody starts waving their big schlong around because they're rich,
good people are good
down
people.
With that. Yeah, good people,
regardless of your
people.
religious beliefs, your political beliefs, your skin color, where you were born, what you've got. Everyone is, to me, here. I don't care if you're the richest man in the world. We're still here until you show me where the kind of person you are. That's where I know. It's who are you?
Just be a good person.
That's it.
Life's much better.
And I think this is a very tough subject to talk about because it's so horrific that you look at this and you were like, God, the government did these people this way. And it took all this time for them to say anything about it. It's not taught in school. Rug, right? I mean, it's like, it blows my mind. But again, I want to come back to, please don't let these media conglomerates play you. It's not race versus race. It's not blue versus red. It should be about the 99% of us business that are going to the grocery store every day, looking at how much things cost and knowing that it's all these 1%ers, the guy who runs Amazon, freaking Tesla, all that stuff. They have made this for us and they're profiting. Right now, they profited through the pandemic.
Amazon just raised their rates. They just raised their rates. They made more money than ever, and they just raised their rates.
They don't care about you or I, and they are playing us so that we look at the small things against each other that really are insignificant when we need to be looking at the haves versus the have-nots, and don't get played. Just don't do it. Be a cool person. It starts with you. You can't go, like I said, if everyone, regardless of their political stance or their religious stance or whatever, just treated someone with a little bit of courtesy, courtesy. Not saying we have to hold the red carpet or open doors or give you a ride somewhere. Just be courteous. Do you know how awesome this planet would be if we just were courteous?
It starts right here.
One, that's it. Just try to be courteous to one person today. You might make someone's day. And I know that it sucks that we have to lose lives.
I might walk out of the studio and just start kissing the first girl I see.
Well, that's different. That's it. We could do that tomorrow and Friday anyway. So yeah, Jay, I'm proud of you for making it through this. I appreciate you now that you know it's something you can tell somebody else. But again, I wanted this to come back to, we can't change the past, but we can most certainly change the future.
So what do we give this?
I give it a
How many burned down
4.5.
cities?
Yeah,
4.5 burned down
four,
cities?
4.5.
Yeah, I'll go. It was a good history lesson for me.
It's a great. It's well put together. Kind of slow in the beginning.
It was short. Yeah,
really
it was slow
short.
in the beginning, but short. Yeah.
But the reason it's slow is because there's so much to the story. It wasn't just about what, because like I said, we all learned something, and I thought I knew about this. So so it's Jay's turn to serve it back to me.
Man,
what are we watching
I had
next?
some free time, and I watched 2, and they're both so perfect. One of them you'll never come across it, and so I'll save that in my back pocket, because the one that I did watch, you would jump on it, and I'm going to steal it from you, Mike. Bitchin'. The Sound and Fury of Rick James. Oh, Amazon. It's on Amazon. Oh,
God, I can't wait.
I was clueless to all this, man.
So you didn't know he was friends with Neil Young?
I didn't know. No, he was in a band with Neil Young. I didn't know that, man. No.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. Oh, damn. I'm down for Rick James
it's called
all day.
Bitchin', The Sound and Fury of Rick James.
Yeah,
and it's basically his life story.
This is also a great example of how cocaine is a hell of a drug,
this
baby.
Dude killed the game.
Great. I mean, hell, you could go as far as to say, if no Rick James, no Prince.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, all day.
Yeah.
I mean, all day. So we'll get into that. We got a whole hour to talk about it next week. As always, stream us online, 1047thecave.com. You can download the podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app. This is Jay Stevens. I'm Mike the Intern, reminding you, we watch movies,
documentaries,
so you don't have to. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.